Hello and welcome to my Bolt EUV. I'm Jim, and we're going from point A to point B. Today, my car is 1 year old and I've put 30,000 miles on it in that 1 year. We're going to discuss a lot of things today. But to help me out here, I've got to have a reminder. My Bolt is the 2023 Redline Edition Premier. See all the nice features that it has. It's in Summit White. The interior is black. All the Redline Editions have black interiors. And the only dealership added option was tinted windows, as you can see. Much darker in the back and on the rear window than the front of the car. The few things that we're going to cover today in this video is the total cost of ownership for 1 year and 30,000 miles. Some notable road trips that we took over the past year. Some aftermarket additions that I've put into the car. The battery degradation and battery management system. I did a video on that a couple weeks ago, but we're going to go over that again. We're going to talk about the rear bumper revival. And we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, climb in. Let's go. So we're going to start out the video with the Aftermarket Additions. We're going to talk about the floor mats, the cargo mat, the cabin air filter, the dash camera, the infotainment center screen protector, the OBD2 port module, and the best EV mod, center console organizer, the floor console organizer, and the trash bag. So the floor mats that I chose for this are the 3D by Max Piter. As you can see, they are a very nice fit. They come over the threshold of the car, they button down, they stick really well. You hear it snap. And it's also a great fit in the rear. As you can see in the rear, it fits across the entire back floorboard of the car with absolutely no problem whatsoever. So in the back of my car, I added the Chevrolet protector. And underneath that, there's plenty of storage. I keep my boots, hard hat, gloves, and vest in here for my work when I have to go out on construction sites. And you see it doesn't take up any of the main space here in the back of the car. As you can see here, I've added this little contraption. This was actually given to me by Best EV Mod, and I did a review on that. You can go back and look at that earlier. And as a result of doing that review, they sent me this nice little contraption that goes between the seats. You see, that's a nice little device to have, place to keep your change. One of the other modifications, or one of the other things that I've added, is this V-Peak OBD2 port reader. And I'll go over that in a little bit more detail later. I've also added these two cup holders here to make it much easier to fit a bigger cup in here. Also, one of the things that Best EV Mod sent me for a thank you is this neat little garbage can that fits on the back of the passenger seat. Has a little light built in it and everything, so that's a nice little modification as well. One of the other things that I've added is this Viofo front-facing camera. You'll notice that I've got it tucked in real nicely. You cannot see the cable. It comes around. It actually plugs into my cigarette lighter, or what we call a cigarette lighter. I've also added a touch screen cover here. It's basically a screen protector like you would put on your cell phone, except it's for the infotainment system here. Hard to keep clean either way, whether you put this on it or not, but at least it protects the overall screen. And also, let's forget about the K&N air filter that I put in for the cabin air filter at 22,500 miles. Now we're going to talk about some of the notable trips that we've taken. The first road trip that my wife and I took in the car was to the Smoky Mountains back in March of 2023, just about a month after we got the car. The trip was over 1,400 miles round trip, including all the driving that we did while we were in the Smokies. Later in July, I had to make a trip to Central Georgia for a dear friend's funeral. That was a 750-mile round trip that I made in one day, there and back again. In October, I made another trip to Georgia and back to visit family in Atlanta, and that trip was right at 1,000 miles. And then we made the 1,200-mile plus trek earlier this year back to Atlanta. Then we swung through Enterprise, Alabama on the way back home. This one is documented in a 3-video series that I did earlier. So far, my Bolt EUV has visited Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama. And I'm already planning our next road trip, and we'll document that one in full details too. Of course, we've made numerous excursions in the Bolt here in Florida, visiting the Swanee River in Hart Springs, Florida, St. Augustine, and the Kennedy Space Center. We've also had numerous trips back and forth to the parks here in Central Florida. All total, my wife and I have made almost 6,729 miles in road trips, just road trips. That means that I've put 23,271 miles on the car for my job and other local activities, and that's about right because I expect to put about 24,000 miles on any car that I own when I'm using it as a commuter car. Now let's talk about the updated battery management system calibration steps. As you'll remember, I did an update on the battery calibration just a few weeks ago. But after talking to a couple of the commenters, I have decided that we need to update these steps to give you a better chance of achieving a good calibration. So step 1, drive or let the car run down to less than 1%. If you have an OBD2 device, plug it in and make sure that state of charge or state of raw charge levels drop to below 1%. I recommend letting it get down to about 0.5%. Step 2, after depleting the battery, unplug the car, turn it off, and let it rest for 3 hours. Number 3, charge the car on AC power to 100%. Make sure that no additional charge is going into the battery. Check your EVSE, your EV supply equipment, to make sure that nothing is going into the battery. It should read 0.0 volts or give you some other indication that nothing's being delivered to the battery. Then, after the battery reaches 100%, let it stay plugged in for 3 to 4 more hours. Then, unplug the car and let it rest or sleep for 3 to 4 more hours. At that point in time, your battery management system should be completely recalibrated. As you can see from the title page, we're about to go through all of the expenses through 30,000 miles. We're going to start out with the home charging, the AC charging that I did at home. I've driven 23,271.5 miles where I charged at home. That total cost has been $959.03. On the road, DC fast charge and level 2 charging that I paid for while out on the road, I drove 6,728.5 miles for a total cost of $511.82. That brings the total charging costs to $1,470.85. Now let's talk about maintenance costs. My total maintenance costs through 30,000 miles have been $87.19. Let me repeat that. $87.19 for my total operating costs of $1,558.04 through 30,000 miles, period. During that time, I averaged 3.77 miles per kilowatt hour. That's 26.53 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, or 16.48 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Now let's get into the comparison. My wife drives a 2016 Honda Accord. It's the car that shares the garage with my Bolt EUV. It averages 27.5 miles per gallon. The average cost per gallon in Florida for the past 12 months has been $3.35. That means for 30,000 miles, 1,090.9 gallons of fuel pumped, for a total cost of $3,654.55. Maintenance costs during that period, including a brake job, are $359.75 for a total operating cost of 30,000 miles for the Honda Accord, $4,014 Now let's do the comparison, a fair comparison. $4,014.30 compared to $1,558.04. That means I've spent $2,456.26 less. My operating cost per mile, 5.19 cents per mile. Her operating cost per mile, 13.4 cents per mile. That means that the Bolt operates at 38.7% the cost of an ICE vehicle of comparable size and quality. I'm sure somewhere out there, some ICE vehicle owner's hair has just exploded into flames because of the comparison that I've just made. Well, I can make these comparisons because the two vehicles live in the same garage side by side, and I am married to the owner of the 2016 Honda Accord. So I have no problem making these comparisons, and I have all the documentation to back up everything that I have provided in this video. So if you want to see more, I'll set up an appointment and you can drop by and we can discuss this in person if you would like. Well, now it's time to cover the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's talk about these three things. The good. The good is that they are safer to drive with fewer fires, fewer fatalities, and less damage in a collision. They're also much more fun to drive. You hit the accelerator and the car moves. And finally, the total cost of ownership through 250,000 miles is less than an equivalent ICE vehicle, including the higher cost for initial purchase and even a battery replacement. You'll still have money left on the table at the end of 250,000 miles. And unlike ICE vehicle owners, I'm brave enough to talk about the bad with relation to electric vehicles. The bad. The public charging infrastructure is still lacking, but it is improving with the opening of the Tesla network. The Tesla network was just opened to Ford vehicles yesterday, and within the next 60 days will open up to vehicles from the General Motors line. One of the other bad things is there are no aftermarket companies, especially for batteries, yet. But that's going to change over the next 5 to 10 years, just like it did in the internal combustion engine market, where now you can go out and buy a 350 Chevrolet small block from just about anywhere. And specifically for the Bolt, there are no companies that are focusing on replacement powertrains or batteries like there are for the Tesla. There are companies out there now investigating Tesla replacement powertrains and batteries. Now let's talk about the ugly. If you tuned in thinking that I was going to consider the Bolt an ugly vehicle, you're wrong. I consider neither the Bolt EV or the EUV to be an ugly vehicle. The ugliest battery electric vehicle award ever built goes to, and it's the Mitsubishi i-MiEV. It is the ugliest EV I have ever seen in my life. Let's ask Bubba what he thinks. What do you think, Bubba?
Well, if I had a dog that ugly, I'd shave its behind and teach it to walk backwards.
And there you have words of wisdom from Bubba. We've covered quite a bit today, and I'm sure that I'm going to get some hate comments. That's the norm when I say something about ICE vehicles. But keep in mind, I don't have anything against internal combustion engine vehicles. I just think that their time has come and gone. They are becoming obsolete. And it's time for the world to wake up and realize that. It's so much more energy efficient to use a battery electric vehicle. So keep that in mind. We have discovered and discussed quite a few things about the total cost of ownership through 1 year and 30,000 miles. And we can see that it's going to be much cheaper to operate this vehicle through 250,000 miles. We talked about some of the notable road trips that my wife and I have taken over the past year, about 6,500 miles worth, and we plan on more over the course of the next year. Also, some of the aftermarket additions that I've added to the car, including the floor mats, the camera, a few other things. But most importantly, we talked about the OBD 2-port reader. I demonstrated some of that during the battery management system discussion and the battery degradation discussion. If you want to recalibrate your battery, use those steps to recalibrate your battery management system. You have to take it all the way down to about 0.5% and then fully charge it back to 100% and let it rest at both ends of those discharge and charging periods. Also, we talked about the rear bumper revival and the failure after about 100 days because of the car wash issue. It just would not hold up to car washes. We also talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we know what the ugliest car, battery electric vehicle car ever made was, and I won't go over that again. But I do want to thank you guys for stopping by, so do subscribe, share, comment, and like, and ring that notification bell if you want to know when I upload something new. Also, remember to treat everyone with kindness, put a smile on your face, help someone today, and pay it forward when someone does the same for you. Again, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you out there somewhere or along the route from point A to point B. So take it easy, everybody. See you real soon.